I think we're all aware that there are some words in the Bible that don't get used a lot outside of the Bible. And one of those is hallowed. When's the last time you've heard hallowed anywhere outside of really the specific place that we're looking at, the model prayer? The word that probably comes the closest to mind when we think of hallowed is Halloween. So what's it mean when we pray and we're to pray, hallowed be your name, God? What are we talking about? The whole point of this prayer, Jesus gives this model for prayer after he said, don't use empty phrases like the Gentiles do, things that they've used so often they've lost their meaning. Well, in this case, we might not have ever known what the meaning is. So what's it mean? Jesus starts this model prayer, Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Well, that word hallow means holy. And holy means separate from. It literally means cut off from. And so when it's used of us, it's separate from sin and set apart to God. What about when it's used of God? Again, He's separate from whatever the focus is. And in this case, it says, hallowed be your name. And this isn't talking about one of God's specific names like Yahweh, Jehovah, El Shaddai, anything like that. In the ancient world, a person's name was basically their reputation. And even today, we'll talk about a person earning a name for themselves, their reputation. And so in the ancient world, people's names would often be changed because they would earn a different reputation. So as it talks about God, His name is who He is and what He's done, His character in general. So you put that together, hallowed be your name. God, I'm praying that your name would be set apart from, that your character, people would view you differently than any other God. And I realize there's not other gods today that people think about literally, but there's things that we can treat as God, things that we can rely on or look to, place in the first place in our life. And this prayer is, God, I pray that wouldn't happen. You would be viewed in the place that you deserve, in the way that you deserve, and treated that way. And really, this is part of our relationship with God. If you've seen my growth geometry video, that's part of that training, How to Study the Bible, one of those geometry figures is the relationship circle. At the top is God, at the bottom is us. God, His part toward us, He blesses us and provides for us. Our part toward Him is to worship and glorify Him. Well, the very essence of that is, glorifying, that God would be seen for who He is, that He would receive the glory He deserves. That's what it's really talking about here. He would be seen as different, and not just different, but above, far more glorious than any other rival imagined or whatever people rely on today. So as we talk about this being the model prayer, and not meant to just be recited, but to guide us as we pray, how does this fit? What does it mean as I sit down and pray to God? How should this hallowed be your name impact that? What should I do to pray this type of prayer, this element of prayer? Well, one, I'm praying that God would be viewed, as we said, separate from other gods. That people would realize He is different than anything else that they could rely on in life. He's far more above, beyond, more powerful, more wise, more knowing. All of that. God is different and above. I think the other thing too, as we pray for this, for God His name to be holy, I think there's an element certainly today of, I pray God that people would realize the real you, the glorious you versus some of the distorted images of God today. This follows this idea of our Father in heaven. And I said in the last blog that, that's the idea that God wants to have a relationship with us, that in that relationship, He is totally in control and absolutely loving. That's His nature. That's what we can trust about Him. Well, I'll tell you what, if you ask a lot of people today, certainly non-Christians, but even Christians, those wouldn't be the traits of God that come to mind. He wouldn't be very glorious in terms of the way people think about Him. And so I truly think part of this prayer is, God, I pray people would realize the real glorious you, that you would be separate from those other views of you that are not worthy of you. And so that's one thing I'm praying for. I'm praying for this then also just to be true. God, hallowed be your name. I pray this would be true. I pray in the world people would come to see this. Certainly other Christians, that we'd see this and live it out. And that's also a part of this prayer. God, help me to do my part in this. It's not just me praying that it would happen. God, help me to live a life. The things I do, the things I say, that people would see who you truly are. They would see your glory. They would see your true nature, all of it as it is, not some distorted view, certainly not see me relying on something other than you, some other God in that sense. God, I pray that they would see through me. I pray you would work in me for that to be true. So we've seen so far this model. It starts off focused on God, the fact that he wants to have a relationship and his character in that he is in control and loves us. And then the prayer that, God, I pray others would realize that. I pray that would be true. They'd see who you are just in general. And Lord, anything I can do for that to be the case. As I said last time, there's nothing wrong with reciting what we call the Lord's Prayer. I prefer the model prayer, but we need to know what it means, not just as we recite it at times, but certainly so it can be the model that Jesus wants it to be, so that I can have these elements in my prayer life.